Thank you, Elizabeth. As our scripture today concludes, blessed are the peacemakers. Our dear friend Helmut has spent his life fostering peace by working with governments in developing countries to improve public health in those nations. He has served as a researcher and consultant in public health and epidemiology in Ethiopia, Egypt, Kenya, and Brazil. He also has served as a counselor to PhD students in Ethiopia. But he wasn't done yet. In addition, Helmut taught medical geography for 8 years at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. He is joined with other researchers to publish 10 books and 300 articles in scientific journals about public health and environmental issues. Helmut earned a bachelor's degree in German literature and a master's degree in geography, both from Fresno State. He has received a PhD in medical geography from UC Davis. Some of us know those things about Helmut. What some of us may not know is that Helmut began life in a very unpeaceful time. He was born in August of 1939 in a small village near Frankfurt in central Germany. World War II started 1 month later, in September of 1939. This morning, Helmut will share some of his story in a question-answer format with me. So Helmut, to start, what are some of your memories of being a child during the war?
Well, I recall some memories. I was 6 years old when the war ended. But what I remember is a rather difficult situation overall in the village. Food shortages, even though we were growing some of our own food, we had land. We had sheep. My grandmother would knit socks, sweaters, and underwear. I refer to the underwear as barbed wire cages. Those sheep did not make merino wool. There was bombing. I remember a Christmas we spent in our cold, damp basement during blackout. Difficult time. Our father was in the war. My father was in the war. So our ailing grandfather was trying to cultivate the land. But things got better toward the end and after the war. For example, I had my first chocolate and oranges from American GIs when they came in to the village. Delicious. The first ones I ever ate. And a few years later, we enjoyed swimming in the bomb craters caused by Allied bombing. The craters had filled up with water, so we enjoyed that. And my father had returned from the war, but like his two brothers, had been injured. Not seriously, but hand injuries, foot injuries, causing discomfort.
Helmut, tell us about your family. What were their political views and what did they teach you?
Well, my father, well, first of all, the family did not oppose the war. My father considered military service beneficial and even necessary for young men to participate in, to experience, to build discipline, and bravery. My mother, on the other hand, taught the empathy, love, and kindness. So these two opposing views actually helped me to nudge toward becoming a conscientious objector. They encouraged me, of course, to go to church, which was, of course, a major social institution in the village.
Well, Helmut, tell us about growing up in the Lutheran Church. What were some of your experiences?
The Lutheran Church in the 1950s was a rigid structure with the pastor, a civil servant appointed by the government. There was no participation of the congregation in church service. And there was a mandatory church tax levied on all working people, which was increasingly resented. But there was room for more relaxed and pleasant events and occasions. For example, during confirmation, when the pastor passed around the chalice with wine among the congregants, one of the congregants said, "Prosit," which means cheers. Now, this was not surprising. I grew up in a drinking society, and the pastor himself and his wife participated every year in the church anniversary, the annual church anniversary, which was really a beer bash. But he had his beer or wine and participated in this festival.
Helmut, in elementary school, you had a friend who was named Gunther, and he was Jewish. How did that friendship influence your view of your village and of your nation, Germany?
During many discussions over the years, I got to learn from Günther about the atrocities committed against the Jewish people, the discrimination he and his family experienced in the village, and the atrocities that the Hitler regime committed with the Holocaust.
So Helmut, what was there about you, your temperament, your personality, just who you are, that made you open to what your friend was telling you about what had happened to the Jewish people in Germany? Because I believe you told me that was not a story, that was not a part of history that you learned about in school.
Well, my conscience helped me to understand the unjust actions of the Hitler regime, and also within the village setting, the unjustified, damaging attitudes toward my friends' families.
Now, Helmut, at 19, you decided to leave Germany rather than be drafted into the German army. Why did you make that decision?
First of all, there was how shall we say, immigration was in vogue in the 1950s, when many Germans were not yet sure whether the reconstruction was going to work out and be successful. I had made plans with Günther to immigrate to Canada because of our life experiences. And he was accepted as a conscientious objector in Germany because of his Jewish background. I was not, of course. So I immigrated myself. Canada was always considered by us as a new, wide open country with unspoiled nature, economic opportunities. And so that's why we decided to go to Canada. I also considered Canada as a possible stopover to go to the United States. I did not want to go to the States directly because I was aware of the requirement for all immigrants to register with the draft board within the first year of residence. And only after I went back to Germany and met two American GI objectors, conscientious objectors, who informed me about the possibility of applying for this status, did I go back to the States.
Now, Helmut, when you came back to the United States, you were eventually drafted into the Army. And you, as you said, you entered the Army as a conscientious objector. Could you tell us more about why you made that decision?
Well, as I indicated, this was a evolving process from earlier childhood, and I, so to say, wanted to stick with my guns. I would have been a conscientious objector in Germany. I wanted to maintain this position.
So in forgive me, what was your job in the Army?
I was a medical assistant and a dental assistant. All conscientious objectors were assigned to medical units rather than combat units.
So in 1965, when you got out of the Army, you came to Fresno. Why Fresno? What brought you here?
I was accepted by Fresno State College as a transfer student. I had taken college courses at the University of Colorado and Southern Colorado State University extension centers in Colorado Springs while I was in the Army.
Now, Helmut, you've said before that you hope to get an education in public health as a, quote, natural extension, unquote, of your conscientious objector philosophy. How are those two things connected?
Both public health workers and conscientious objectors work toward saving lives. Public health workers save lives by treating people and preventing disease. Conscientious objectors by rejecting to kill people.
And finally, Helmut, what's been the most meaningful aspect of your professional life?
Well, I think it was carrying out research with many researchers, public health officials, graduate students, with the objective of preventing, controlling diseases in poor developing countries.
And Helmut, I think you also wanted to say a word about being people persevering in whatever they choose to pursue in their careers.
Yes, my guiding principle, or leitmotiv, we call it in German, during those 50 years of academic work was to work hard for worthy causes and perseverance. So I encourage all students and adults in this congregation and beyond to practice passion, to be passionate about our work and practice perseverance. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Helmut for sharing part of his story with us today. And I just want to say that as Helmut has shared his knowledge and his passion around the world, in the last several years as we went through the pandemic, he was our go-to person for help in figuring out what steps we needed to take to keep our congregation safe. And we can't thank him enough. And Helmut, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thank you for your life and for who you are.